Hello, She-Hulk fans. Episode 3 might have just given us the most important post-credit scene of the entire MCU. Let's get on with the breakdown. With episode 3 of She-Hulk now out, it's time for me to give you guys my episode reaction along with my breakdown, pointing out Easter eggs you might have missed, as well as giving you my spoiler review, because I'm gonna be honest with you guys, so far, I'm someone who's been liking She-Hulk. I really enjoy this show. I saw the first 4 episodes, and episode 3 is my least favorite of the bunch. I would not be surprised if a lot of other people feel that way. It just felt like the one that took the silly factor really up. It finally did the thing a lot of people were hoping for, and that is give us an episode with a self-contained story. Heck, there was probably 2 self-contained stories in here. You have Pug dealing with the shape-shifting elf from Asgard, and then you have Jennifer Walters who's dealing with trying to get the appeal for Abomination. This felt most like a sitcom, which I do like that the show is tackling, but this one right here just dropped the ball for me a little bit. Not saying I hate the show or anything like that. I'm still on board with it because I think the next episode also does the same thing of introducing a little story and having it wrap up by the end, and I think that story is handled much better than this episode. But I really want to know from you guys, what did you think of episode 3? Did you like the direction that the show is going in, as well as your thoughts and theories to that ending and who the Wrecking Crew could be working for? So at the beginning of episode 3, we have Jennifer Walters trying to work on the appeal for Abomination to get on parole. She goes back to Damage Control to question him how that footage leaked out from Shang-Chi. There was a lot of questions from last week's episode. Even myself, I was a little confused where we thought the events of Shang-Chi and She-Hulk were happening at the exact same time. Well, now it's become more clear, no, they are not happening at the same time. That Shang-Chi event happened long ago, and then once they heard they were trying to appeal Abomination to be set free, they leaked that footage to the media. So it looks like this is still happening after Shang-Chi. Emil Blonsky comes clean that it was actually Wong, Sorcerer Supreme, that set him free to fight him. This is where we get a nice little Easter egg of Wong's LinkedIn profile, where apparently he was a Target sales associate for 9 years. Okay, do with that information as you please. As well as even being a librarian for 11 years at Comitage, which we saw in the first Doctor Strange movie, and then eventually becoming Sorcerer Supreme, where he resides in New York City. While Jennifer Walters is trying to tell her friend to get Wong on the line very soon, we then get another fourth wall break where she tells us,
I know you can't wait to see Wong. I get it. I just want to make sure that you don't think this is one of those cameo every week type of shows.
And there was just so much hate for this one scene. I saw some people taking it so seriously and to heart, just being upset with her, going, how could you go ahead and say this show isn't about cameos when all your trailers and teasers have been showing off cameos? I think that's the whole joke here, guys, is she's saying this show isn't about cameos, while at the same time they're promoting endless cameos. That's why she goes off and lists them.
Well, except Bruce and Blonsky and Wong.
I think some people are really missing the joke, and just their insecure anger of this show is getting to them. They're not really trying to lecture us about what to expect from these shows. They know what we like, and they're gonna deliver that sometimes. We just had a freaking Wolverine Easter egg last episode. They know what they're doing. But speaking of bothering people, I love that She-Hulk did this, and that's why it pains me that this is my least favorite episode, because they went after the insecure man babies that are always screaming MCU. Why do women have to have superpowers? Why are the strongest people in Marvel now women? It's like, bro, do you not hear the way you sound? Because you literally sound like these people.
I have no problem with female heroes. I'm just saying, make your own.
I try to respect everyone's opinions, and I don't like starting YouTube beef, but I am not a fan of that subsection of YouTube where all they do is scream woke, is scream MCU. It's like, grow the F up, man. So really, hats off and pats on the back for She-Hulk for calling that out.
I don't know about y'all, but I'd smash.
Bruh. Bringing us now to another superhero-related lawsuit where Jennifer Walters re-meets up with her old colleague, where he's attempting to sue a shapeshifter from Asgard that pretended to be Megan the Stallion and cheated him out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. We'll dive more into that subplot and why I just wasn't a fan of it as the episode continues on, but as this conversation happens, Wong finally pops in to discuss with Jennifer Walters why he took out Abomination from his prison cell. and I hate the explanation. I love me Wong part of this episode and what he's bringing here. I thought he had a lot of great jokes in here, but really him just bringing out Abomination so he can train as Sorcerer Supreme just didn't live up to the excuse I wanted to know. Just like all this time wondering and speculating what Wong could want with Abomination, and it just turned out to be a meaningless training exercise. It just kind of feels a little uneventful. I did like, however, though, we get a small nod to Spider-Man No Way Home, where Wong mentions he doesn't want to erase any memories because it can get very messy.
I'm not erasing everyone's memories, not again.
Which I know some hardcore MCU fanboys are going to be like, wait, how can he even remember that? Doesn't the spell mean they have no memory of doing that? If you also remember, Doctor Strange and Wong made it very clear in Spider-Man No Way Home that they've performed that spell many times before, so it's something they're aware of. But for us, the audience, it's more related to Spider-Man No Way Home. While that conversation moves forward in that room, we move to the next room where Pug is trying to work with this guy on his case with the shape-shifting Asgardian. Pug is slowly becoming one of my favorite characters of She-Hulk. I just really think this guy is funny, especially when the Asgardian accused him of sexually harassing women in the workplace.
I love harassing women in the workplace. It's my kick, baby. Not cool.
What's that?
I don't. You guys know me.
I thought that was a funny joke, and just goes to prove to you this isn't one of those shows where every single male character is some sort of villain, unless, don't get me wrong, maybe Pug turns out to be a villain at the end of the show, but he seems really nice and friendly. When he's on his computer doing some research, though, we get another Easter egg yet again to these Iron Man 3s. I'm starting to think Disney and Marvel are going to start selling actual Iron Man shoes, and this is their slow way of putting that into the world. But I guess here's a good time to mention why I just wasn't a big fan of the whole elf subplot. I, for one, really like the idea of the previous episode where She-Hulk and Emil Blonsky had that conversation about him having a real case to be innocent. He was forced by the government, he was fed this super soldier serum, promised to be the next Captain America, then he ended up becoming imprisoned and with no chance of leaving. That's really messed up, especially when Bruce Banner the Hulk is out there being a hero and an Avenger. That seemed like an actual interesting legal case in the MCU I wanted more of, and then this shape-shifting elf subplot just seems so childish, so bare minimum. Maybe because I just finished watching Better Call Saul, I expect a little more out of my lawyering shows. Like, here's where a lot of the cringiness jokes got to me and I just wasn't laughing as much. Like when the elf impersonates the judge. Like, sure, that might be a funny gag to some, but I just think of the logistics of that. Like, you're clearly guilty now. What's the point of a trial? Just send this person to jail. Also, you're an Asgardian. Why are you messing with human people? And does, like, even our laws apply to Asgardians? It just starts making me overthink this whole thing, and it didn't become as fun. That's probably my own fault, but I'm just saying and being honest with you guys. Wrapping up that elf story plot, I do like how Pug was able to tie it off at the end, bringing in Jennifer Walters as a witness. But my criticisms don't end there, because then we move on to the small trial or hearing of Emil Blonsky trying to get his parole approved. A lot of people were wondering who the 7 pen pals were the last episode, people thinking it was a hint to the Thunderbolts. I didn't want to spoil it for you guys. It's whoever these ladies in Midsommar clothing are. Basically his multiple wives and financial support system. There's a lot of theories going on whether Emil Blonsky is faking this just to get out or he's actually reformed. Maybe I'm gullible, but I think he is reformed. I really don't think this is an act, especially since we find out later in this episode that Wong gave him the chance to be free in Comitage, but he decided not to take it and go back to jail. To me, it just seems like he's actually changed. But I mentioned in my previous reviews of this episode that I had a real problem with Abomination, and it was this. I don't mind that they made him maybe a little more comedic, that they gave him sort of a Korg-like voice where it's a lot softer and not the old Abomination voice. The reason I'm okay with that is because it seems like a lot of these big hulking characters like Hulk and Abomination have these split personalities. With Bruce Banner, you have the Bruce Banner personality and you have the other guy. And I feel the same could possibly be said about Abomination. He has Emil Blonsky in him and the other guy that is more ruthless with a harsher tone. My problem comes in where in Avengers Endgame it was said Bruce Banner went to the lab for 5 years, and in those 5 years he figured out how to put the brains and the bronze together to turn into Smart Hulk, which made it sound like there was a lot of science involved, a couple of procedures, who knows what, but it took some lab work. When over here it looks like Abomination in his prison cell was just able to control his rageful self without a lab, without trying to put the bronze and brains together. Like, that's the explanation to me that again feels a little lazy. easy. That's where I have my problem with Abomination, that it feels like Bruce Banner's work is undermined when someone can just do it from a prison cell, and Bruce doesn't really need this whole lab and a bunch of research when he was destined to be able to control it himself without any work. Hopefully I'm making sense to you guys, but that's my one issue here. Probably also paired up with another small minor nitpick, like we just saw this episode go through them trying to put parole on Abomination, trying to arrest or make liable this Asgardian shape-shifting elf, and then when these people hear that Wong assisted and abetted a prisoner from escaping, they're like, you know, that's a crime. They just let him go, don't even pursue him. It feels like I'm nitpicking and being overcritical of this episode, but it's like you're establishing rules within your show. Follow those rules, because if you're not following the rules you just set up in this series, then what is the point? Anything can happen. But after these two storylines are completed, we then get Jennifer Walters trying to go home for the night, where she's approached by the Wrecking Crew. Now these are a group of villains I was excited to see pop up in the MCU, just because I think their costumes and powers in the comics are pretty fun. They're just a gang of low-life villains who one day got enchanted weapons, and then they got all this strength and abilities. But here for sure, they are not the team from the comics at all. This looks laughable and like a poor parody. I know it's just the beginning of the Wrecking Crew and they'll probably get upgrades later on, but I was genuinely curious to see how they would introduce them into the MCU, and it turned out to be another joke. I don't even know if they're serious about them getting their enchanted weapons from a construction crew in Asgard. Like, is that really how they got those weapons? Is that the new origin? Or was that just a joke they played off? Because those weapons are pretty crucial how they get their abilities. I would like to know a little bit about that, Marvel. Still, I guess the aspect of this that I did like is Jennifer Walters staring at herself in the car after she's defeated these guys with the thought in her head, Bruce was right. You can't just live a life as a superhero. It puts a target on your back and people are going to come after you. So I think it's really cool that we're starting to see some of those consequences, and start your speculation and theories now to who hired the Wrecking Crew to steal some blood from Jennifer Walters. My money would have been on Thunderbolt Ross, but I still have no idea if they're including that character into the series because the actor in real life has passed away. It could also be social media influencer Titania, probably thinking having some of her blood can enhance her abilities and she can fight She-Hulk better. Whatever it is, I'm gonna have my expectations set real low, because this would not be the first time a Marvel Disney Plus series sets up a big unknown villain in the background for us only to be disappointed when it's revealed by the end. So yeah, like I said, this is my least favorite so far of the She-Hulk series. I felt like it just took it a little too silly, not following the rules of its world. Next week's episode, I think, pumps up the quality back up. It's a fun little story. So the show isn't completely ruined for me. I am still liking what is being delivered, especially that ending. Don't be forgetting to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter at 3CFilms or on TikTok at 3CFilms. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.